Alright, let's do this thing. Bonjour mes amis, my name is Freya, and I've been asked by my friend, the great writer Ayla, to write an introduction for her book, The Adventures of the Lone Shee, so here it is. This book tells the story of how our hero, the Lone Shee, meets some really interesting people as he travels through... ... Okay. Bonjour mes amis, my name is Freya, and welcome to Novel AI. I need to change the title here. Basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paste the first paragraph of every section of the docking station story and see what the AI thinks should be written next. Okay, after years of working in isolation and only straying from the task for tea and biscuits, the device was completed. The others had all laughed at his plan. Literally jump across dimensions into a spherical world without leaving the comfort of Albia? Preposterous. He had persisted, and those long nights of twiddling with DNA had paid off. Finally, a device that would allow the Shee to explore the rest of the universe with ease, and it was all his own work. He couldn't wait to see the look on the others' faces. He jumped through to the first dimension, but found himself trapped. There were no other worlds within this one, no other dimensions, just a dark void, as if he'd stepped into a black hole. Wow. We're off to a great start, guys. We've already killed him. You have any more for me? After hours of searching, he finally spotted something glimmering far away, a tiny spark of light just like a star shining brightly. He moved towards it. As he got closer, the light became clearer, more defined. No, Lone Shee, don't go towards the light. It was an egg! Oh, okay, perfect. And inside that egg sat a creature, or so he assumed. It looked vaguely familiar. The creature opened its eyes and stared right back at him. Hello there, said the creature cheerfully. Alright, let's move on to the next one, the Bondi Norins. One day, in his never-ending search through the warp for exotic teas and alien cookie recipes, our friend the Shee stumbled across an alternate future version of Albia. The fallout from his violent volcanic escape from the surface of Albia had settled millennia ago. The small, two-dimensional planet had been transformed into a tropical beach paradise. The Shee was delighted with this discovery, as it meant he could take advantage of the island's natural resources by harvesting coconut oil for use on his hair conditioner. However, after sampling one of these delicious oils, the Shee suddenly The Shee developed a sudden craving for human flesh! So much so that he set up shop at the local beachside bar where he proceeded to serve drinks laced with a hallucinogenic cocktail designed specifically for humans. This cocktail induced hallucinations of being bitten by a shark or a poisonous snake, and also caused intense paranoia about alligators lurking beneath every log in the... Let's try again. Let's do the Hardman Norins. He felt he was getting the hang of the warp now, but a little voice inside said this is a dangerous thought to have. The only other time he'd been confident of his destination, he'd ended up appearing a meter above a piranha pool. What were they thinking in that universe? Piranhas on board the Ark indeed. But as it turned out, these piranha were harmless and quite cute in their own way, so he decided to take them with him back home to Earth. Well, they got his home wrong, that's okay. But then he met someone from another dimension who told him there were two things you must do before returning home. First, you need to go to the source of all life, or the core, to ensure its survival into the future. And second, you should make sure the human race survives too. This is where we join the tale. No, that went completely off the rails. Treehugger Norins. Our Shee friend was growing tired of watching his Hardman Norns fight amongst themselves. His eldest Bondi Norn was getting too weak to play the didgeridoo, and even the compelling Mecha Grendel didn't seem to amuse him anymore. He needed something new, and he knew exactly what he needed to do. He dusted off his portal device and punched in some random numbers. Clenching his teeth and closing his eyes, he activated the portal. In what seemed only an instant, he was in a different place. The room had no windows, but there were two doors, one leading into darkness, and another that opened onto a balcony with a view out over a city. The building looked like an old Victorian house, or perhaps a palace. It had columns all around the edge of the roof, each carved with beautiful flowers, leaves, animals, and birds. There were also 3 chimneys on either side of the house. They appeared to be made from solid gold. It wasn't until our hero looked at them more closely that he realized they weren't really chimneys at all. They were statues. One of these figures was holding a violin, and the other held a trumpet. I mean, I guess it's valid. Like, technically speaking, he could have emerged anywhere, just going through the warp. So I can't really say that this contradicts canon, except, I don't think he would call anything a Victorian house, because I don't think he would know what Victorian means. Alright. Toxic Norins. The Lone Shee put down his genetic screwdriver and watched, fascinated, as the bacteria continued to grow and divide within his flask. This was unprecedented. He'd been to a lot of strange places recently, but that planet was just so, well, alive. So alive, in fact, that every inch of the forest floor had writhed and slithered with the movements of a multitude of life forms. The atmosphere had been damp and humid, and the air thick with the smell of 1,000 digestive systems digesting. It had been an incredible place to visit. It was certainly not for the faint-hearted, but he'd felt safe there, knowing that nothing could get close enough to touch him without the warp's protection. Huh? Okay. Sure, why not? And now, finally, he could go home. He took another swig from his flask before returning it to its rightful place on his belt. Then, with a sigh, he placed both hands on either side of the flask and began to concentrate. It would be some time before he got back, but at least this way he could see his... I don't think it's done. He could see his family again. His wife! The beautiful Cybella and their 3 lovely daughters. He hadn't seen them since they were all toddlers when he left on his first ship. Okay. Tell you what, let's back up a little bit. We'll skip ahead to the end, the final chapter of the docking station story, and instead of having it write that, we'll have it write what happens afterwards. It occurred to him that he really should probably try and make contact with the Shee Ark before performing the docking station's final act, if not only to be thorough. So he rushed through to the comms room and attempted to establish a communication channel with the other vessel. He strongly suspected the Ark would now be empty. The Shee hadn't come all this way only to sit in the orbit of Sphericus, but he thought it may seem rude if he didn't at least try and invite any residents to share in tea with cookies and biscuits. So when someone on board the Ark actually did accept his comm signal, he was very surprised indeed. But not half as surprised as he was when her image came through on the screen. At first she seemed somehow ugly, and yet somehow deeply beautiful. Her face was so much like a Shee, yet it seemed she had features that were very much that of a Grendel. He had seen faces like this only once before, faces that as a child had haunted him in his nightmares. This was the face of a kind of someone he had thought to be nothing more than the purest fiction. The face of a Banshee was staring right at him. Her ruby-red, Grendelish eyes burned deep into him, and she spoke with a voice quite unlike anything he'd ever heard before. "Welcome to Sphericus. I've been expecting you." The voice seemed to echo around his skull, resonating throughout every pore of his body. It was such a strong feeling of déjà vu, but also one of absolute terror, a fear he'd never felt before, or since. "Who are you?" he asked, suddenly feeling very afraid. "How can you possibly know what I'm thinking? Who are you?" Okay, cool, they gave the Banshee mind-reading powers. Her response was simply to stare back at him. For some reason, her eyes were filled with sorrow, something that she couldn't hide from him. Then she smiled, and the effect was utterly terrifying. Her teeth looked sharp enough to tear his flesh apart, and there was no doubt whatsoever about their deadly purpose. Then she reached out to touch his cheek, and he flinched away. Instinctively, he tried to run. Okay, I guess the AI hasn't figured out that they're on a phone call, but he knew running was impossible because he could feel himself being pulled towards her. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet began to shake violently, and then he realized it wasn't just him who was moving. His whole world was shaking too. Something terrible was happening. Something terrible was coming for him. That was actually pretty good! Okay, cool. I might, use this for other things. But that's gonna do it for this video, so thank you everybody so much for watching. If you enjoyed, let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more of this stuff, let me know, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!